strategies to protect assets and deter legal threats. To safeguard your assets against legal predators, you must have an asset protection plan. If asset protection were a feeling, it would be a collection of legal instruments that act as a kind of insurance, allowing you to rest easy when the legal guns come out to fire. Although it's best to have your assets safeguarded before you even need the defense against lawful predators, many people wait until they are in the thick of combat. It is advisable to take action to protect your assets in conjunction with a suitable plan. After you've created your asset protection strategy, go to create the legal organizations needed to carry it out. Remember that the expenses involved in creating an appropriate strategy are usually very small in comparison to the value of the assets being safeguarded. Don't cut corners then. You wouldn't put your life in danger while operating a vehicle on the highway. Try not to scrimp and lose faith in your financial situation. Create a financial fortress that is designed to weather legal storms and equip yourself with the appropriate legal tools. Though there isn't a single approach that works in every case, most may achieve a bulletproof degree of security and peace of mind with the correct planning. More assets entice more legal sharks to search for a quick meal since there is more blood in the water. Therefore, increased wealth necessitates more sophisticated and advanced methods. Ensure the person you meet with can clearly explain the suggested strategies to you. A plan that you really understand will make you a lot happier. Thus, be sure to work with a specialist who can provide you with the necessary amount of comfort through literature, films, and/or graphics. You don't need to be aware of every detail that exists concerning your plan that is known to humanity. To switch on your TV, you don't need to be aware of each circuit's amperage tolerance. All you have to do is know how to operate it. Thus, settle in, but resist the need to get paralyzed by analysis. Once you've determined what you need to know, act. The strategies you use to safeguard your assets from legitimate predators, even in the simplest of circumstances, need careful consideration. Make sure you have identified all the assets you want to safeguard by doing a full asset appraisal before you start the process. To put it briefly, asset protection may be the simplest and least expensive way to secure your assets in the event of legal action. The process of protecting your possessions from legitimate predators is known as asset planning protection. Asset protection is much more successful when done ahead of time, just like any other strategy. Moreover, getting oneself safeguarded is essential in this day and age of money-for-nothing thinking. Depending on whether you have any assets that could be taken, you may or may not need asset protection from legal predators. Asset protection is a strategy to help fend off legal predators by arming yourself against a potential calamity that might affect almost any person or business worldwide. It's time to start getting ready if you possess assets but lack this kind of security. Find out what has to be done. Next, create the trusts, LLCs, local and foreign organizations, and friendly encumbrances that you need to protect yourself from the risk of legal predators. To protect your hard-earned assets, if you are sued because of a car accident or a disgruntled client, you must prepare ahead of time in today's litigious world. More specifically, it is not uncommon for people to protect their assets by using some kind of tool. The first thing you should do is make sure you hire a top-notch asset protection specialist who understands where to put each item. Seeking the advice of a professional with expertise in asset protection, debt protection, estate planning, and, in certain cases, bankruptcy is the best way to find out if you should secure your assets and whether doing so is cost-effective. To ensure you receive the right protection, look for certified, experienced, and skilled asset protection specialists in this industry. Although there isn't a safe way to protect your assets locally from all attacks, if they are sufficiently secured, they can keep legitimate predators at bay. The finest security is frequently offered by global security instruments, such as offshore trusts. Generally, the first person you would consult when trying to preserve your assets is an accountant or asset protection professional. The best way to protect your assets and income from legal predators is to adhere to the finest asset protection measures in addition to using this guidance. What are a few of these tactics then? Forming a firm is the first crucial step. The second important factor is how you run your business. Asset protection plans should be implemented while your business is still small and expanding. Start implementing your asset protection plan as soon as you hire a qualified asset protection specialist who is prepared to develop a workable corporate asset protection strategy. It is important to remember that not every business person or family may benefit from a certain asset protection plan. Everybody has distinct requirements, goals, and assets. For this reason, it is far better to consider an organized asset protection plan in advance with an experienced asset protection specialist who can help you through the process. Make sure you take the required actions to carry out your plan. These days, putting in place a comprehensive asset protection program is imperative. For everyone who has assets to safeguard, asset protection planning is extremely important, and the earlier you implement the plan, the better. A legal asset protection planning strategy protects your assets through legal means. In actuality, asset protection planning is typically tax neutral, even though most people think it's the ideal method to escape tax obligations. The goal is to shield you from legitimate predators in a lawful manner. Using a limited liability company is an additional way to protect your assets. Creating a limited liability company (LLC) serves the main objective of shielding assets from potential legal predators. Asset protection trusts can be used to protect an LLC's assets after it has been formed. A Nevada organization trust, for instance, is a more recent form of organization that provides privacy, liability protection, and more control over one's enterprise. Since asset protection differs from state to state, looking for options similar to this level of protection in your state might help you secure your assets with an even more robust plan. An S corporation might be your best option if you, for example, have a large salary from your job, expect significant losses in the early going, and don't think the company will go public very soon. You can choose whether to convert your company to a C corporation as soon as it begins to make a regular profit following the significantly high initial year's expenses. Indeed, you will want to incorporate it as a C corporation if you intend to take it public. In either case, when you run your firm as a corporation, you have an asset protection mechanism in place to safeguard yourself against legal predators arising from corporate liabilities. Once your business is formed, maintaining records will become crucial. Maintaining documentation will assist you in monitoring your resources, earnings in addition to assisting you in carrying out further development of your asset protection strategy to safeguard your assets against legitimate takers. Call inaugural and yearly meetings and maintain formal resolutions for significant loans and purchases. While corporations are an effective tool for asset protection, they can be difficult to manage and may result in the loss of your personal liability protection if you fail to maintain accurate records. Therefore, to continue protecting your assets for years to come, it is necessary to have tight record-keeping procedures within your corporation as soon as you start the business. Because corporations enable you to create a corporate trust, they are also very helpful in safeguarding your assets from potential legal predators. To improve their potential for asset protection, a lot of individuals who work for corporations also create individual trusts. Better long-term plans can involve setting up a trust that will manage your posthumous tax, legal, financial, and asset protection planning goals and potentially benefit your children and grandkids greatly. To put it briefly, if it makes sense to protect beneficiaries from creditors, divorcing spouses, and inheritance taxes, you should think about setting up a beneficiary-controlled trust. You might be able to keep all of your kids safe when you create a special needs trust. A trust that wasn't created with your child's needs in mind may prevent your child from receiving necessary additional benefits. If you would like your inheritance to be safe and secure, consider designating an independent trustee to protect your loved ones. You and your partner can handle the trust in day-to-day affairs. It serves as a method to efficiently distribute these assets to family members once you are both gone. You should choose trustees carefully, just as you would when choosing staff members. Despite not having to personally supervise every aspect of the investing practice, a trustee serves as the practice's general manager. Therefore, you must choose a company you are confident in. Every owner of personal property should be concerned about protecting their valuables. Both company and private property are included in this. Asset protection is a great notion, but the price of a plan is usually directly correlated with the value of your assets. But since losing your possessions can cost you far more, it is almost a need for those who can afford it to get informed and take action as soon as feasible. Speak with a consultant as the next course of action. You may have needed years or perhaps decades to amass all of your riches. That is a great deal of tears, sweat, and blood. What could be more difficult than amassing wealth? Observing them disappear in a moment. Because of this, you put yourself in a situation where it is far more difficult for others to take everything you own when you maximize your asset protection. I know you're asking how on earth this is possible. A lawsuit has the power to completely take away your assets. Frivolous lawsuits have the potential to seize your expensive sports car, large home, yacht, business, and other assets. Not believing that a lawsuit is likely? Rethink that. People searching for quick money will target you if you have a sizable quantity of money. If you've been concentrating on acquiring wealth rather than safeguarding it all this time, this may come as a frightening fact. It's time to think about asset protection measures if you don't already have any in place. All of your assets are on the table as soon as you get sued. It is not possible to protect them by going back in time. You don't want conventional protection if you have a lot of assets that you don't want to lose. To ensure your peace of mind, you want the best protection available. So how can you safeguard your wealth the best? You require a high level of protection from lawsuits, creditors, and other legal issues that may arise, regardless of whether you have been building wealth for decades or are about to receive an inheritance, sell a business, sell your stocks and bonds, close on a significant real estate deal, sign a sports or entertainment contract, or win the lottery. If you want to optimize the protection of your assets, take into account these wise financial decisions. Naturally, it's a wise and simple decision to increase your insurance to safeguard your newfound wealth. A personal umbrella liability policy that matches your increased net worth ought to be in place. Ask your broker to get a $5 million umbrella liability policy, for example, if you recently acquired $5 million from the sale of real estate. A minimum of $5 million is recommended by certain tax attorneys. Do not hesitate to boost your policy even further if you believe that you may acquire additional funds in the upcoming months. It's not too bad to pay about $300 for a $1 million coverage at the rates. If you are ever the target of a lawsuit, it will be worthwhile. Plan for the greatest outcomes. Before receiving your money, raise your insurance. All you have to do to safeguard your millions of dollars worth of assets is give a short phone call. Try to keep the account balance as low as possible if you must share it with a family member, business associate, or child. This is due to the possibility that all of the account's funds may be swiftly lost if one of the account holders had any legal issues, such as a lawsuit, lien, or divorce. Nothing is in place to protect you, even though your name may be on the account. Make a list of every joint account you have and consider closing any that you can get rid of permanently. In certain states, married people still need to follow the advice above. Withdraw the money from the joint bank account you and your spouse share, depending on your state's laws. This is because in certain states, they may automatically receive half of the money. If you have promised your children from a previous marriage an inheritance, this could become a problem. Additionally, you should keep that money away from your soon-to-be ex-spouse if you're thinking about getting a divorce soon. Speak with an expert to go over your choices. Although rental properties can be a reliable source of income, unsatisfactory tenants can occasionally be unavoidable. You run a big risk of being sued as their landlord in the event of a dispute or accident. The child of a renter who fell out of a second-story window devastated one landlord we know. Establish a corporate entity, such as a liability corporation LLC, to protect your rental property. Every rental property ought to be a separate legal business. In this manner, only the entity's assets would be impacted if a renter chose to file a lawsuit. Your private property will be safeguarded. Businesses should use corporations and LLCs rather than partnerships or single proprietorships. When these corporations are properly founded and maintained, there are legal measures that shield the owners and principals from losing personal assets if the business is sued. If your company is sued, you can be personally protected by the aforementioned institutions. What would happen if you were sued directly? On a Friday night, you rear-end someone on your way home from a restaurant. You later face a lawsuit seeking 3 times the amount of insurance coverage. Your entire possessions could be lost. Thus, it makes sense to educate yourself on asset protection. After which to act. As soon as a lawsuit confronts you directly, arm yourself with the legal resources you need to defend your property. Your investments and cash can be held in an LLC that you and your spouse own. Avoid combining hazardous and safe assets. It is improbable that someone will trip over the money in your bank account. It is far more likely that you may be sued for a car accident, a slip and fall on a house or rental property, or for breach of contract. Invest a sizable amount of liquid funds in an asset protection trust. Since local courts lack jurisdiction over offshore asset protection trusts, they are the strongest of those. Therefore, use the appropriate legal measures to protect your assets from creditors and legal vampires who are hunting for their next meal. A sole proprietorship and a business partnership are equivalent. In reality, it can even be worse since you're accountable for whatever your partner does in addition to your debts. It's comparable to having a joint account, but it can lead to even more dire circumstances. In a partnership, if one of your partners gets sued for business purposes, you could lose everything business and personal. If you and your partner, for instance, run a consulting business and your partner enters into a contract with a customer but breaks his half of the bargain, you and your assets would be liable for the damages. This example teaches us to stay away from business partnerships of any kind. This does not imply that you should shy away from starting a business alongside your brother or best friend. Simply exercise caution and stay away from the unofficial route. Consider your business from a legal perspective. Instead, create a corporation or LLC to provide your assets with legal protection. You can go one step further to safeguard your assets, even if you choose to create an LLC by the previous suggestions. As previously said, an asset protection trust can shield your finances, house, valuables, and other items in case you are sued personally. This is so that your trust, not you, will be the rightful owner of the property. Therefore, if everything is set up correctly, you have nothing that creditors can seize. The assets are owned by the trust, and you will be responsible for designating a trustee to make sure the assets are distributed to the beneficiaries of your choosing after you pass away. It can be unsettling to consider giving up control of your possessions, therefore you may want to think about creating a domestic asset protection trust (DAPT). Because you can designate yourself as the beneficiary while shielding assets from creditors, DAPTs are sometimes known as self-settled trusts. There are waiting periods, so if you're interested in setting up a DAPT, you should do so as soon as possible. Conversely, offshore trusts have a far longer history of case law. Not all judges uphold the law. Moreover, you do not want a judge to hold your assets due to the growing conceptions of legal liability, particularly one who is being deftly influenced by a shrewd attorney. Foreign trustees are not subject to domestic court authority. Thus, they are free to disregard the rulings of your amiable local judge, who has been misled into thinking you are the next Bernie Madoff. Thus, do not gamble. When offshore trustees are located in the right jurisdictions, they are bonded and licensed by insurance firms, and they have a long history of representing their clients' best interests. Conversely, offshore trusts have a far longer history of case law. Not all judges uphold the law. Moreover, you do not want a judge to hold your assets due to the growing conceptions of legal liability, particularly one who is being deftly influenced by a shrewd attorney. Foreign trustees are not subject to domestic court authority. Thus, they are free to disregard the rulings of your amiable local judge, who has been misled into thinking you are the next Bernie Madoff. Thus, do not gamble. When offshore trustees are located in the right jurisdictions, they are bonded and licensed by insurance firms, and they have a long history of representing their clients' best interests. Invest the money in a retirement savings plan if you own a profitable business and don't need to reinvest the profits in the company. Creditor protection is typically offered by 529 college savings programs, cash value life insurance, and retirement plans. But since every state has its own set of regulations, make sure to research your state's laws if you're thinking about using any of these accounts to secure your assets. All of us want to increase our income. We can purchase assets and provide better lifestyles for our friends and family when we have money. Greater wealth equates to greater experiences and a higher standard of living. Although money has the power to improve your life, it can also destroy it if you let it. According to a proverb, more money, more problems. Envy from less fortunate people is frequently fostered by wealth. This is particularly valid if you drive a fancy car and live in a fancy house. You are a bullseye on your back if people find out that you are wealthy. The good news is that with strategic planning, you can not only appreciate your wealth, but also avoid the stress that financial uncertainties bring. By taking proactive steps, you can safeguard your finances and sleep soundly at night. Effective financial planning begins with creating a robust plan that includes budgeting, managing debt, and setting up an emergency fund. Diversifying your investments and ensuring you have adequate insurance coverage are crucial steps to mitigate risks and protect your wealth. The good news is that with strategic planning, you can not only appreciate your wealth, but also avoid the stress that financial uncertainties bring. By taking proactive steps, you can safeguard your finances and sleep soundly at night. Effective financial planning begins with creating a robust plan that includes budgeting, managing debt, and setting up an emergency fund. Diversifying your investments and ensuring you have adequate insurance coverage are crucial steps to mitigate risks and protect your wealth. Stay tuned for more information.